Chapter 1337. Revolving Blade Wheel. Seeing that her speed couldn't confuse Yi Chen, the woman leaped into the air and spun her body. A spiraling blue blade light swept towards Yi Chen. The blade light went from bottom to top, and its speed kept increasing. So did the power of the blade. In addition, it covered a huge area. It could be said to be a powerful killing move. Yi Chen took a few steps back and swung his heaven sword. Space-time sword art Death Cleave. The interweaving sword net covered a wider area than the spiraling blade light. Under Yi Chen's intentional control, the sword net was shrinking as if he was fishing. Clang, 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 clang. The sky was filled with sparks as the sword net covered the spiraling blade light. The spiraling blade light rampaged, trying to tear the sword net apart. The blade and sword clashed millions of times. It seemed to be a long time, but it was just a moment. After a moment, the sword net was shattered, and the spiraling blade light vanished. Sword burial art. A figure passed through the dissipating sword net and blade light, and stabbed the woman. The woman retreated quickly. Her speed was even faster than Yi Chen's attack. But soon, she found that her speed was getting slower. A condensed space-time power had enveloped her. Unlucky. Ever since she understood the secret of the word attainment, the woman had always been successful. But there were exceptions. For example, when she met an expert who was proficient in space-time, her speed was useless. Moment of youth. The woman didn't retreat anymore. She stabbed the blue moon blade into the ground. The next moment, the blade light burst out like flower petals, wrapping the woman up like a flower bud. Yi Chen's sword burial art stabbed on it, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. Not good. His strong intuition told Yi Chen that the woman wasn't done with this move. As expected, when Yi Chen's strength was exhausted, the flower bud bloomed, and the blade light burst out. The woman stood in the middle of the blossoming flower and slashed at Yi Chen. Dang, 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 dang. At this critical moment, Yi Chen's heart force burst forth, and his sword speed burst forth. In an instant, his sword speed was raised to a level that surpassed the heavenly Tao, blocking wave after wave of saber lights. However, within the saber lights, there was also a blue saber light. The saber light seemed illusory, and real at the same time, as if it was condensed from mist. A smile appeared in the woman's eyes. She believed that Yi Chen would not be able to block this attack. 5 elements sword art. Extreme prosperity and decline. Yi Chen's expression did not change. He waved the heavenly sword, and the 5-colored sword light filled the air. When the blue sword light came into contact with the 5-colored sword light, its power and speed immediately decreased, as if it was stuck in a swamp. When the saber light was 3 inches away from Yi Chen, it suddenly dissipated. So strong. Up until now, the two of them were evenly matched. Yi Chen hadn't had so much fun in a long time. Although Celestial Demon Venerable and True Martial Venerable were stronger, they were a level higher than him. It was impossible for him to have so much fun, and he didn't have the chance to. I'm Lan Yu. What's your name? The woman asked. Yi Chen. Yi Chen looked at her doubtfully. Yi Chen, I can tell that you are young. Since you have given me so much fun, I can let you see my strongest saber move, Void Blade. Lan Yu said confidently. Void Blade? It seems very powerful, Yi Chen said. Of course it is. You will see it soon. Alright, bring it on. I also want to have a test subject for my Overlord Sword Style. Overlord Sword Style combined the essence of 5 elements / and the word Overlord. When the sword was used, it could destroy everything. It was extremely overbearing. It was Yi Chen's most overbearing sword move. Oh, I didn't expect you to have a trump card too. Lan Yu was a little surprised. She thought that Yi Chen had used up all his trump cards. Let's start. Lan Yu raised the blue moon saber with her right hand. The surging saber chi soared into the sky, giving people a feeling that it could cut and break everything. Yi Chen took a deep breath and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, Yi Chen's body erupted with an unprecedented dominance. The dominance and sword momentum combined to form an overbearing sword momentum. The heaven sword in Yi Chen's hand trembled, and the sound of the sword could be heard incessantly. Just like Lan Yu, Yi Chen also raised his heaven sword. The two didn't plan to dodge this attack. Who was stronger? and who was weaker would be revealed with this attack. Void Blade. Overlord Sword Style. The two waved their sabers and swords at the same time. The blue saber chi crisscrossed, and the black sword chi violently swept. Before the two came into contact, the ground in the center had already cracked. Pieces of earth the size of a house flew up and shattered into nothingness. Rumble, in the stagnant smoke and dust, the saber chi and the sword chi collided, and a blue-black mass of air suddenly formed. Then, the mass of air spread at an unimaginable speed, and in an instant, it covered a radius of dozens of miles. Except for the woman and Yi Chun, everyone else was floating in the air, and they couldn't control it at all. Boom! An earth-shattering sound broke out, and everyone was sent flying while vomiting blood. Their faces were aghast. How can it be so terrifying? Even a quasi-legendary sovereign is only SOSO. Gao Yu had seen the battle of two quasi-legendary sovereigns. Although the momentum was greater than that of Yi Chun and Lan Yu, it was still limited. Gao Yu was right. The two who displayed the void-cleaving blade and the tyrant sword style had already entered the ranks of the quasi-legendary supremes. Just this move alone made the two fully deserving of the combat power of the quasi-legendary supremes. Of course, there were also strong and weak quasi-legendary supremes. Compared to the other quasi-legendary supremes, the two of them were still a bit weaker, unless most of their moves were comparable to the void-cleaving blade and the tyrant sword style. Puff! An arrow of blood spurted out from the corner of her mouth, and Lan Yu's face suddenly turned pale. I haven't completely comprehended the word break, or else I wouldn't have lost. The void blade contained the essence of the word break, but unfortunately, it wasn't completely comprehended. On the other hand, Yi Chun had completely comprehended the essence of the word overlord. I've lost. Lan Yu's complexion instantly recovered. She had lost this move, but it wasn't to the extent of causing her to be seriously injured. She had only consumed a bit of Yuan Qi, an inextinguishable energy. It can be considered a draw. There was a saber scar on Yi Chun's cheek. Only now did the scar split open and blood flowed out. Compared to Lan Yu, his situation was much better, but his immortal sword body was still broken. If he didn't have the immortal sword body, Yi Chun wouldn't dare to say that he would have won if the fight had continued. The main reason was that the opponent's crescent moon scimitar contained a powerful armor-piercing power that forcibly broke through his defense. Lan Yu laughed and heartlessly said, Taiyu, since I've lost, the armored tribe will join the eternal tribe. Do you have any objections? I have no objections. Taiyu didn't dare to say that he had any objections. That's good. Lan Yu looked at Yi Chun. The armored tribe can join the eternal tribe, but I also want to become the venerable of the eternal tribe. You won't refuse, right? The venerable is just an empty title. You're welcome. Yi Chun extended his hand to express his welcome. With the addition of the armored tribe, the eternal tribe's power swelled to a terrifying level, becoming a fifth-ranked tribe with a population of 27,000 households. If each household had 3 people, then 27,000 households would have more than 80,000 people. In fact, the population had already surpassed 90,000, approaching 100,000. As for Yi Chun and Lan Yu, they were the left and right venerables of the eternal tribe. Chapter 1338. So you're an outsider? In the eternal tribe, after learning that Yi Chun was an outsider, Lan Yu was very curious. What is the outside world like? My dad heard from an outsider that the outside world is a vast universe. There are countless planets in the universe, and they are billions of times larger than the Wild's deity continent. The Wild's deity continent is just a part of the universe. Is that true? Lan Yu chattered. Yi Chun nodded. The outside world is so big. The experts there should be countless times more than our Wild's god continent, right? Lan Yu asked again. This time, Yi Chun shook his head. I don't know how many sovereigns there are in the outside world, but compared to the Wild's god continent, it's nothing. How is that possible? Our Wild's god continent is so small. Lan Yu's face was full of disbelief. Yi Chun smiled bitterly. It's true. There are many races in the outside world, and our human race is one of the most powerful races. However, Our human race only has a few dozen sovereigns. Perhaps I'm counting a bit too many. I see. Our desolate race is naturally suited for cultivation. Lan Yu was somewhat proud. The people of the desolate race were born with at least astral-reaching realm cultivation. Lan Yu was even more powerful when she was born, being at the Sea of Souls realm. She had reached the life and death realm at the age of 10, which was much more powerful than the people from the outside world. She had heard from her father that the people from the outside world did not have any cultivation when they were born. Yi Chen didn't comment. In his opinion, the Wild's God continent was very special. What enveloped the entire continent was not the heavenly law, but the Wild's God's laws. If the Wild's God's laws set down a rule, it wouldn't be impossible for the desolate race's people to be born with astral reaching or Sea of Soul realm cultivation base. The methods of true gods were unfathomable, and not something ordinary people could figure out. Has anyone from your desolate race ever left the Wild's God continent? Yi Chen suddenly asked. Lan Yu froze for a moment before shaking her head. None. Since ancient times, not even one. The Wild's God's laws restrict us from leaving. If we want to leave the continent, there's only one way, and that's to enter the Wild's God Tower. Desolate God Tower? The Desolate God Tower is in the center of the Desolate God continent. Legend has it that it was built by the Desolate God. Whoever can pass through the Desolate God Tower will be able to leave the Desolate God continent and be summoned by the Desolate God. As for going to the outside world, that is impossible. Can the people outside leave? This was what Yi Chen wanted to know the most. He could not stay on the Wild's God continent forever. Lan Yu thought about it and said uncertainly, My father said it's possible, but it's very difficult. Do you want to leave? I don't want to for now, but I'll have to leave eventually. One of them was a member of the desolate race, while the other was an outsider. They chatted about topics of interest. From Lan Yu, Yi Chen learned about the distribution of forces on the Wild's God continent. There were a total of 13 Great Eight tribes on the Wild's God continent, and all of them were located in the central region of the continent. Outside the central region were tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of villages. Among the 13 rank 8 tribes, 5 were the strongest. They were the Redbud Flower tribe, the Unfalling Eagle tribe, the Battle Tower tribe, the Star Ocean tribe, and the Cloud Central tribe. These 5 tribes occupied the best resources in the central region of the Wild's God continent, followed by the other 8 tribes. In addition to the rank 8 tribes, there were even more rank 7 tribes in the central region, a total of 81 rank 7 tribes. Although there were many more class 7 tribes than class 8 tribes, and their combined strength far surpassed that of class 8 tribes, there were very few class 7 tribes that could defeat class 8 tribes, even if they joined hands. Once there were 10 class 7 tribes that joined hands to attack the Unfalling Eagle tribe, but the final result was that these 10 class 7 tribes were disbanded and were divided between other class 7 tribes and a large number of class 6 tribes. Since then they had disappeared. In the Wild's God continent, the 13 rank 8 tribes were the rulers of the entire Wild's God continent. They did not allow any rank 7 tribe to advance to rank 8 tribe. Once a rank 7 tribe advanced to rank 8 tribe, it would immediately be attacked by other rank 8 tribes until it was completely disbanded. It was for this reason that although rank 7 tribes often fought with each other, they restrained themselves from devouring each other, unless they were prepared to face rank 8 tribes. Of course, rank 8 tribes did not dare to advance to rank 9 tribes. Rank 9 tribes were taboo in the Wild's God continent. If they appeared, not only would they be attacked by rank 8 tribes, but even rank 7 tribes would also attack them. This strange rule kept the center of the Wild's God continent in a delicate balance. Let me tell you, the leaders of the 13 rank 8 tribes all have powerful sacred weapons. Among them, the leaders of the 5 rank 8 tribes have the most powerful sacred weapons. The leader of the Redbud Flower tribe has the Redbud armor. The leader of the Unfalling Eagle tribe has the Exploding Hammer. The Battle Tower tribe has the Battle Axe. The Star Sea tribe has the Star Sea Spear. And the Cloud tribe has the Thunder Punishment Spear. How do you know so much? I am very knowledgeable. These tribal leaders only have one saint artifact. My blue moon saber is an Earth Saint artifact, and your sword should be an Earth Saint artifact as well. Getting an Earth Saint artifact is both difficult and easy. As long as you have a 3rd grade Supreme artifact and a piece of Divine Stone, you might be able to make an Earth Saint artifact. As for Sky Saint artifacts, they are extremely rare. There are no more than 5 Sky Saint artifacts in the entire Wilds God continent, and they are all in the hands of the leaders of the 5 rank 8 tribes. Earth Sacred Weapon? Sky Sacred Weapon? This was the first time Yi Chen had heard of it. It seems that you still don't understand what an Earth Sacred Weapon and Sky Sacred Weapon are. To put it simply, a supreme weapon with 1 divine stone will become an Earth Sacred Weapon. With 10, it will become a Sky Sacred Weapon. Of course, with 9 divine stones, it will also become an Earth Sacred Weapon, but it will be at the peak of the Earth Sacred Weapon. Your Blue Moon Saber has several divine stones. My Blue Moon Saber has 4 divine stones, but your sacred weapon is not bad either. Can a rank 5 supreme weapon have 10 divine stones and not collapse? Not necessarily. I don't know the specific details. If I knew, I would be a legendary supreme. Aya, why do you have so many questions? I thought you outsiders knew more than us. Hearing this, Yi Chen twitched his mouth. There were countless supremes on the Wilds God continent, and sacred weapons were definitely not rare. How could the outside world compare to them? Just thinking about it made him angry. If people like Sky Demon Sovereign and True Martial Sovereign came to the Wilds God continent, they would probably feel unhappy. Do you have any words left behind by a demigod? Lan Yu suddenly asked Yi Chen a question. She had 2 words of her own. One was attainment, and the other was destruction. Yi Chen's overlord sword style made her think that he might have some. The reason why she asked this question directly was that she was not afraid that Yi Chen would guess that she had some words and wanted to snatch them. Even if she could not defeat Yi Chen, she could still leave. Chapter 1339. Yes, you have it too? Yi Chen asked Lan Yu in reply. I have the word break. What word do you have? The word line was very important. After comprehending it, one's speed would increase by 10 or even 100 times. Lan Yu didn't plan to expose it. The word overlord. That's great. When I completely comprehend the word break, I'll exchange with you. How about that? Sure. Yi Chen didn't expect her to have the word break. It seemed like her identity wasn't that simple. How could an ordinary person know so much information? 1 month later, the 2 of them officially exchanged words. The word break, as the name suggested, contained the essence of breaking through everything. After comprehending it, Yi Chen's sword moves would be more threatening and destructive. This time, Yi Chen planned to merge the essence of the word break with the sword burial art. The sword burial art could bury the opponent's time. The space-time power would condense into a space-time sword force. Just this effect alone was no weaker than the 5-element sword art's sword moves. However, Yi Chen's profound meaning of time was only 70% complete. This caused the sword burial art's destructive power to be limited. It was much weaker than the 5-element sword art. For example, when he was fighting with Lan Yu, Yi Chen's sword burial art couldn't break through his opponent's defensive sword moves. In the courtyard, Yi Chen's mind entered a strange space. Inside, a figure started practicing sword skills. Every swing of the sword gave people a feeling that it could break through everything. After watching for a long time, Yi Chen felt his mind hurt. Compared to the word overlord, the word break seems to be better. Yi Chen immersed himself in his sword skills. He only left the strange space when his mind was in unbearable pain. The demigod realm is unpredictable. Just one word is so magical. I wonder what the other words are. Yi Chen was even more curious about the other words. Compared to Yi Chen, Lan Yu's comprehensive ability was obviously weaker. After spending 3 months, Yi Chen had successfully combined the essence of the word break and the burial sword spell together, while Lan Yu had not completely understood the essence of the word tyrant yet. Of course, be it the word tyrant or break, Yi Chen had not fully understood them either. What the demigod had left behind was a piece of calligraphy. Only when all the words were combined together would it be considered calligraphy. Comparing one word to another would be like comparing a firefly to the sun and moon. The sword burial technique, which contained the essence of the word break, was still far inferior to the hegemon sword style in terms of power, but it was more than 100 times stronger than the previous sword burial technique. In terms of facing an enemy, the sword burial technique was not much weaker than the hegemon sword style. The essence of the sword burial technique was to bury time, freezing the enemy's soul and body, and then kill them with a single strike. After recuperating for 2 months, Yi Chun and Lan Yu felt that the days were too peaceful. The two of them planned to conquer the other 5th-rank tribes and raise the Eternal Tribe to a 6th-rank tribe. Only by becoming a 6th-rank tribe would they be qualified to enter the central region of the Wilderness God continent. There were the best resources there, as well as many dangerous places with a large number of treasures. The two of them first targeted the Iron River tribe. The Iron River tribe had 12 supremes, and the strongest was only a high-level supremes. They were no match for the Eternal Tribe. Yi Chun didn't even make a move. He watched as Lan Yu defeated the leader of the Iron River tribe and conquered the Iron River tribe. The Iron River tribe had 25,000 families. With the addition of the Eternal Tribe's 27,000 families, the population of the Eternal Tribe finally exceeded 50,000 families and became a 6th-ranked tribe. However, 52,000 families were still too few. The two of them planned to conquer 2 more 5th-ranked tribes and make the Eternal Tribe a relatively powerful existence among the 6th-ranked tribes. A month later, the High Mountain Tribe and the Black Mountain Tribe were conquered one after another. The population of the Eternal Tribe reached 95,000 families, close to 100,000. Once it reached 100,000 families, it would become a 7th-ranked tribe. However, the two of them were not ready to become a 7th-ranked tribe. Once they became a 7th-ranked tribe, they would receive the attention of other 7th-ranked tribes. If a 7th-ranked tribe attacked the Eternal Tribe, Yi Chun and Lan Yu would definitely not be able to stop it. There were legendary supremes in a 7th-ranked tribe. One legendary supremes was equivalent to dozens of Yi Chun and Lan Yu. Therefore, a 6th-ranked tribe was the limit of the Eternal Tribe, unless Yi Chun and Lan Yu could make another breakthrough and become legendary supremes. After becoming a 6th-ranked tribe, the Eternal Tribe began to migrate. The journey this time was extremely long. Even if they traveled day and night, it would still take them about half a year. Normally, it would take them about a year. However, everyone was very excited. They had long since heard that the central region of the Wild's God continent was incomparably fertile. It was like a national capital, and although there would often be wars between tribes, they could still move about and communicate with each other. They could even do business with each other's tribes. Every tribe was like a city, and they weren't sealed off. In the pitch-black night, a tribe appeared in the barren mountains. There were countless bonfires in the tribe, and everyone was roasting meat and eating dinner. After eating some barbecued meat, Yi Chun returned to his courtyard. After conquering 3 5th-ranked tribes, Yi Chun received an unexpected surprise. In the storage ring of the leader of the Black Mountain Tribe, there was a fantasy character. After discussing it with Lan Yu, she agreed to let Yi Chun keep it. However, if she wanted to see it, Yi Chun couldn't refuse. As his mind entered the strange space of the character, Yi Chun saw a figure practicing a dreamlike sword art. This sword art even made Yi Chun hallucinate. Yi Chun, who had almost lost himself in the sword art, turned pale with fright. His omniscient nature had enough changes, and this fantasy character sword art had even more changes. It was to the extent that one's mind couldn't deduce what was real. Mortal world killing fist turns complicated into simple, and the fantasy character sword art makes people hallucinate. It's just as frightening. As the days passed, Yi Chun gained some understanding of the character's essence, and began to try merging it into omniscient nature. He believed that once he merged it, it would become one of the most frightening supreme sword arts. Even the tyrant sword style would be inferior to it. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed, and they were getting closer and closer to the center of the Wild God continent. On this day, Yi Chun finally merged the character's essence into his omniscient nature. As soon as he threw out a sword attack, a dreamy sword light spread out like a bubble. As long as one entered the sword light bubble, they would be affected by the illusion. The most frightening thing was that it was not a soul illusion, but a deeper illusion. Therefore, no matter how powerful one's soul was, one would not be able to break through it. Only with a powerful heart power could one escape from the illusion. Let's call it the illusion sword style. Right now, there were already 2 completed sword movements in the 5-element sword arts, which were the tyrant sword style and the illusion sword style. Among the space-time sword arts, the burial sword art was slightly weaker. However, it could be used to deal with warriors who were not familiar with the space-time profound. Sometimes it might even be more useful than the tyrant sword style and the illusion sword style. Chapter 1340. Soon, another half a year passed, and they finally arrived at the central border of the Wild's God continent. Lan Yu, why are you wearing a mask? Yi Chen saw that Lan Yu was wearing a black mask. This mask not only blocked Lan Yu's aura, but even Lan Yu's figure was slightly blurred by the mask. He could only vaguely guess that she was a woman. I have some enemies here. If they recognize me, the Eternal Tribe will be in big trouble. Lan Yu explained. Yi Chen smiled faintly. Why do I feel that you don't want everyone to see your appearance? It seems that you are quite famous here. Isn't it better to keep a secret? Lan Yu glared at Yi Chen. Okay, sure. Then tell me what this place is. Yi Chen asked. Lan Yu looked around and said, this should be the Xiyin Plain in the central part of the Wild's God continent. There is only one level 7 tribe in the Xiyin Plain, and the rest are all level 6 tribes. As long as you are careful, and don't be too arrogant here, you should not be targeted by a level 7 tribe. A level 7 tribe had a legendary supremacy. Whether it was a legendary supremacy relying on a divine artifact, or a legendary supremacy themselves, it was equally terrifying. The former had powerful attacks, while the latter had no shortcomings. Of course, if the latter also had a divine artifact, it would be even more terrifying. In short, the Eternal Tribe could not afford to provoke a level 7 tribe. Since they had just arrived, the Eternal Tribe naturally had to keep a low profile. They chose the border of the Xiyin Plain. I'm done. Your illusory sword style is too abnormal. Outside the Eternal Tribe, Yi Chen and Lan Yu had just finished exchanging pointers. Lan Yu looked very depressed. Since joining the Eternal Tribe, she would spar with Yi Chen every once in a while. At first, Yi Chen only had the Overlord sword style, so she could still put up a fight. Later, she completely comprehended the word break, and was evenly matched with Yi Chen. But recently, Yi Chen created another illusory sword style, which immediately suppressed her. Your illusory moon blade is also not bad. Yi Chen smiled. He had created the illusory sword style, and the opponent had also created the illusory moon blade. However, the opponent's illusory moon blade had not reached grand completion, and there was a big gap between it and the illusory sword style. Far from it. The word illusory is more difficult to comprehend than the word break and overlord. It will take at least 2 or 3 years to reach grand completion. Before meeting Yi Chen, Lan Yu was very confident in her comprehensive ability. But now, she finally understood what it meant by there would always be someone better than her. The Divine Fire tribe was the only level 7 tribe in the Xiyin Plain. As a level 7 tribe, they naturally occupied the best resources in the Xiyin Plain. To the east of the Divine Fire tribe was a vast sea of stars. There were countless treasures in the Sea of Stars, which was controlled by the level 8 tribe, Xinghai tribe. To the north of the Divine Fire tribe was a primeval forest with countless fierce beasts. If you were lucky, you might be able to hunt some tame fierce beasts. To the south of the Divine Fire tribe, which was the center of the Xiyin Plain, there was a dangerous place called the Divine Fire Cave. The Divine Fire Cave was an underground world with many layers. Each layer contained a large number of fire attribute treasures, such as metals, elixirs, and even divine stones, and a large number of supreme weapons. The Divine Fire Cave was guarded by the experts of the Divine Fire tribe. If you wanted to enter, you needed to pay a Divine Fire Supreme Order. The Divine Fire Supreme Order was a token refined by the Divine Fire tribe. The only way to exchange for a token was with a supreme weapon. A level 1 supreme weapon could be exchanged for 2 Divine Fire Supreme Orders. A level 2 could be exchanged for 5. A level 3 could be exchanged for 10. A level 4 could be exchanged for 20. And a level 5 could be exchanged for 50. Many Supremes who entered the Divine Fire Cave made a fortune and obtained many treasures and supreme weapons. Of course, there were also many Supremes who never came out after entering. Their supreme weapons and wealth were naturally left in the Divine Fire Cave. In terms of danger index, the Divine Fire Cave belonged to 3 stars. 1 star corresponded to ordinary Supremes, 2 stars corresponded to powerful Supremes, and 3 stars corresponded to Super Supremes. This didn't mean that there was no danger for Super Supremes in the Divine Fire Cave, but it was relatively less dangerous, and the chances of coming out alive were very high. If one was unlucky, not to mention elementary Supremes, even quasi-legendary Supremes would be in danger. The Divine Fire Tribe was huge, and it was like a city. The outer perimeter was protected by tall city walls, and one could only enter through the city gates unless one wanted to break through the Divine Fire Tribe's formation. In the Divine Fire Tribe's northern city, there was a tall pagoda. This pagoda was called the Divine Fire Supreme Pagoda, and it was the place to exchange for the Divine Fire Supreme Medallion. On this day, Yi Chen and Lan Yu came to the Divine Fire Tribe to exchange for some Divine Fire Supreme Medallions. This broadsword is a second-grade supreme weapon. It can be exchanged for 5 Divine Fire Supreme Medallions. The red-robed elder looked at the supreme broadsword that Yi Chen took out and said, "All right, let's exchange." Yi Chen nodded. This supreme broadsword was obtained by Yi Chen after he killed the Golden Sand Tribe's 3rd elder, Jin Ho. At the same time, he also obtained a supreme armor. However, the supreme armor was very useful, so he didn't plan to exchange for it. "This is your Divine Fire Supreme Medallion." The red-robed old man sheathed his great blade and handed over 5 fiery red tokens to Yi Chen. The workmanship of these tokens was exquisite, and they emitted a scorching aura. There was a fiery dragon pattern flowing on top of them. After leaving the Divine Fire Supreme Pagoda, Lan Yu said, "The Divine Fire Tribe has a Divine Fire restaurant. The meat and dishes there are very delicious. It's very famous in the central part of the continent. I'll treat you." "You should have to pay, right?" Yi Chen asked. Lan Yu said, "Of course. Starting from the 6th grade tribes start to coin their own currency. For example, the Divine Fire Tribe's currency is Divine Fire Coin, and below it is Fire Coin. This is used internally. If outsiders want to exchange for Divine Fire Coins, they can either use Yuan stones or treasures. Of course, they can also use supreme weapons. In the Divine Fire Tribe, 1 million Yuan stones can be exchanged for 1 Divine Fire Coin. Although the Divine Fire Continent's Yuan Qi was rich, it still required Yuan stones to cultivate. However, under Life and Death Realm, Yuan stones were not very useful. Absorbing the Yuan Qi of the world was enough for them to maintain the fastest cultivation speed. A single meal in the Divine Fire restaurant cost Lan Yu more than 300 Divine Fire Coins, which was equivalent to more than 300 million Yuan stones. The two had a supreme banquet, and the meat was all supreme beast meat. Needless to say, the taste was extremely good. At least, Yi Chen had never eaten such delicious meat. Unfortunately, it was too expensive. A single meal cost more than 300 million Yuan stones, and the meat on the table was only about 1% of the supreme beast meat. Most of the customers in the restaurant were from other tribes, so the business was very good. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, the two left the Divine Fire Tribe and rushed toward the Divine Fire Cave. In the distance, the two saw a beam of fiery red light shooting into the horizon. It was the entrance to the Divine Fire Cave. 1 Divine Fire Supreme token per person. Whoever dares to barge in will be killed without mercy. The ones guarding the entrance of the Divine Fire Cave were the experts of the Divine Fire Tribe. The leader had sharp eyes and was clearly a quasi-legendary sovereign expert. Behind him, there were 2 peak super sovereigns and 6 high-level super sovereigns. With such a lineup, not to mention a lone sovereign, even if a level 6 tribe came to force their way in, they wouldn't have an easy time. Chapter 1341. That's the Divine Fire Tribe's Raging Blaze Hall's Hall Master Wubian. The Divine Fire Tribe has a total of 3 halls, namely the Raging Blaze Hall, Sacred Fire Hall, and Warfire Hall. Each hall's hall master is a quasi-legendary sovereign. The 2 beside him are the Raging Blaze Hall's Vice Hall Masters, while the other 6 are Raging Blaze Hall Elders. The elites of the Raging Blaze Hall are all here. Lan Yu whispered to Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded slightly. If the Raging Blaze Hall was so powerful, it wasn't hard to imagine how powerful the Divine Fire Tribe was. It was impossible for a 6th-ranked tribe to fight against a 7th-ranked tribe. After handing over 2 Divine Flame Supreme tokens, Yi Chen and Lan Yu entered the Divine Fire Cave. The first layer was a fiery red world of lava. The temperature was extremely high. Even 1,000 suns wouldn't be this high. There aren't any treasures on the first layer. Let's go straight to the 5th layer. Lan Yu seemed to be very familiar with the place, as she led Yi Chen to the next floor. Soon the 2 arrived at the 6th layer. The 6th layer was no longer fiery red, but light blue. It looked a bit cold, but the temperature here was 100 times higher than the first layer. So hot. Yi Chen felt his sword energy was slowly being consumed. One had to know that sword energy wouldn't be consumed in the first layer. It's fine here. Once we reach the 9th layer, we have to put up an energy barrier. Lan Yu said. How many layers does the Divine Fire Cave have? Yi Chen asked. Lan Yu said, I know there are 11 layers, but I'm not too sure about the exact number. A long time ago, there was only 1 layer. Later on, someone discovered the 2nd layer, then the 3rd layer, the 4th layer. Maybe someone has already discovered the 12th and 13th layer. But as long as they aren't stupid, they wouldn't tell anyone. The newly discovered places have the most treasures. The 7th level of the Divine Fire Acupoint was blue in color. The 8th layer was dark blue. The 9th layer was dark blue. The 10th layer was light blue. And the 11th layer was azure. In the azure world, flames were like lightning flashing. Wherever they flashed, there would be a loud bang. Without exaggeration, even a powerful sovereign would be turned into ashes by the azure flames. Yi Chen and Lan Yu put up an energy barrier. Otherwise, if they were hit by the azure flames, their energy would be consumed very quickly. Crackle! A green flame flashed towards Yi Chen. Yi Chen didn't even bother to look at it. The speed of the green flame was too fast. Even if he dodged it, he would still be in a sorry state. So it was better to just ignore it. Dang! The powerful impact caused Yi Chen to stumble. What was going on? Yi Chen turned around just in time to see an axe bounce away. Supreme Axe! Who would have thought that there would be a Supreme Axe wrapped within the green flames? The axe's entire body was scarlet red, and it was obvious that it had been burnt red. You're quite lucky, Lan Yu teased. Let's hope we have more luck. With regards to supreme weapons, Yi Chen held the attitude that the more the better. There were quite a few honorable ones on the 11th floor. In just a short while, the 2 of them had already encountered 5 honorable ones. However, it was clear that all of them were very cautious and avoided them from afar. The 11th level of the Divine Fire Cave was extremely vast. If it wasn't for the fact that this place had formed its own space, the entire Sheen Plain might not have been able to cover it. The 2 of them flew aimlessly. When they noticed something strange, they came down to take a look. Rumble! The 2 of them were just about to pass by a magma lake. All of a sudden, the magma lake below instantly evaporated, and the ground cracked. Immediately after, pieces of inky green crystals flew everywhere. Puchi! A small part of Yi Chen's protective sword energy was penetrated, and a small piece of inky green crystal was stuck on it. Yi Chen stretched out his hand to grab it. Puchi! The crystal was extremely hot, and inky green flames darted out, instantly enveloping Yi Chen in flames. Scatter! His sword energy erupted, and the inky green flames were extinguished. What crystal is this? Yi Chen was startled. He felt that this inky green crystal was not simple. The temperature of the flames was thousands of times higher than the green flames on the 11th floor. Divine Fire Stone! Lan Yu exclaimed. Hearing this, Yi Chen looked at Lan Yu. Lan Yu explained. Divine Fire Stone is a kind of fire-attributed energy crystal. Legend has it that it contains a trace of the desolate god's power, which is why its temperature is extremely high. Divine Fire Stone has many uses, and its biggest use is to forge supreme weapons. Some supreme materials are very hard to melt, but as long as they are burned by the flames of the Divine Fire Stone, they will melt in a short while. With enough Divine Fire Stone, forging supreme weapons will be many times easier. In addition, Divine Fire Stone has a great effect on refining the body. The flames of the Divine Fire Stone can burn away the impurities in the body, making the body stronger and purer. Can Divine Fire Stone upgrade a rank 8 spirit body to rank 9 spirit body? Yi Chen asked. Lan Yu glanced at Yi Chen. Of course it can. It's just that the process is more painful and dangerous. You need to use the power of the Divine Fire Stone bit by bit. You can't use it too fiercely all at once. It's fine if it can. Yi Chen sighed with emotion. It was really a case of wearing out iron shoes and fruitless searching, and finding it without any effort at all. Yi Chen and Lan Yu didn't care about those Divine Fire Stones that were flying around. Their eyes were fixed on the crack below, where traces of dark green light were shining. Finally, the ground stopped trembling, and a sharp point emerged from the crack. The sharp point was inlaid with dense dark green Divine Fire Stones. Collect the Divine Fire Stones. You can't use any energy, or the energy in the Divine Fire Stone will explode. Its temperature isn't very high, Lan Yu said and removed the energy barrier. She walked to the side of the sharp point and began to collect the Divine Fire Stones. Yi Chen also walked up to collect. As expected, after removing the protective sword energy, the temperature of the Divine Fire Stones wasn't high. Of course, this was only relative. 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces. Soon, Yi Chen had collected over 100 Divine Fire Stones. As the two collected the Divine Fire Stones on the sharp point, there weren't many left. Divine Fire Stones? Not far away, a beam of light flew over, and a brown-robed old man was wrapped in the light. Yi Chen and Lan Yu tilted their heads and looked over. Not only did the two not slow down, but they also sped up. Stop! My Divine Fire Stones? The brown-robed old man's heart was bleeding. The most precious treasure in the Divine Fire Cave was the Divine Fire Stones besides the Divine Stone. The Divine Stone depended on one's luck. Although the Divine Fire Stone wasn't as rare as the Divine Stone, it still required a lot of luck to obtain. Some people couldn't get a piece in their lifetime, while others might get one on their first visit. The brown-robed old man had bought 3 Divine Fire Stones from the Divine Fire tribe last time, which cost him a lot. This time he finally saw so many, but he wasn't the first to see them. Either leave the Divine Fire Stones, or leave your lives. The brown-robed old man was a quasi-legend supremacy. He stared at Yi Chen and Lan Yu fiercely. Yi Chen, be careful. This guy is an expert from another level 7 tribe, the Hidden Fog tribe. He has the strength of a quasi-legend supremacy. Don't underestimate him. Lan Yu secretly reminded Yi Chen. Yi Chen replied, I haven't fought a quasi-legend supremacy yet. Let's join forces and fight him. Okay, beat him to a pulp. Lan Yu said heroically. Chapter 1342. It seems like you want to stay alive. The brown-robed elder's face sank, as he secretly condensed desolate element. You can't make us stay alive. If she was alone, Lan Yu would naturally be afraid of her opponent. A true quasi-legendary supremacy was different from them. Their moves were all Great Success Supreme Martial Arts, or attacks that could rival Great Success Supreme Martial Arts. She only had Void Break Blade and Tyrant Blade Slash, which were Great Success Supreme Martial Arts. She still had a long way to go before her Illusionary Moon Blade reached great success. She might be able to fight for a short period of time, but in a prolonged battle, she would definitely lose. However, she wasn't alone. Beside her was Yi Chen. Yi Chen's illusory sword style was definitely one of the most powerful moves among the Great Success Supreme Martial Arts. In that case, I'd like to see what moves you two have. The brown-robed elder roared as he rotated his palms. Layers of white waves rushed towards Yi Chen and Lan Yu. As the white waves appeared, white water vapor appeared in the surroundings. It turned out that the temperature of the 11th level of the Divine Fire acupoint was extremely high. The palm force of the brown-robed elder leaned towards water, which stimulated the high temperature and produced a large amount of steam. Instantly, the steam emitted a green light and drowned the surroundings. The three felt as though they were in a sea of fog. They could hear the rolling waves. It was the palm force of the brown-robed elder. Tyrant Blade Slash. Tyrant Blade Style. Lan Yu's Tyrant Blade Slash was extremely similar to Yi Chen's Tyrant Blade Style. However, one was a saber while the other was a sword. When the saber and sword slashed at the white waves, the domineering saber aura and sword aura combined temporarily. Rumble! The white waves rolled back and sent the brown-robed elder flying. Preposterous! The brown-robed elder was furious. He could tell that he wouldn't be able to win if they fought head-on. The two of them could fight against a quasi-legendary supremacy if they joined forces. Foggy Soaring Art. The figure of the brown-robed elder turned blurry and eventually turned into a dense fog. He shuttled through the sea of fog at an extremely fast speed. Disappeared. Lan Yu frowned. Yi Chen's eyes flashed as he suddenly waved his sword to the right. It was just one sword, but it seemed as though thousands of swords had gathered together. Space-time sword art Death Cleave. That was close. At the critical moment, the brown-robed old man merged with the fog, and the sword chi directly passed through the fog, unable to hurt him at all. The terrifying thing about the fog soaring technique was that it could turn one's body into fog. Unless it was directly hit, it would be very difficult to break. Just now, Yi Chen's attack range was wide, but unfortunately, it was not high enough. Reverse Blade Wheel. Lan Yu's body spun, and circles of saber light spread out in a spiral shape. The returning saber wheel was known for its powerful after effects. Each point was the most lethal point. With Yi Chen by her side, Lan Yu could use the returning saber wheel without any restrictions, forcing the brown-robed old man out. 1 breath. 3 breaths. 5 breaths. It was unknown how many layers of the huge spiral blade light had circled in all directions. Not to mention the brown-robed old man. Even Yi Chen was a little bit worried. He was sure that once he was hit by the spiral blade light, his body would definitely be cut into a skeleton, unless his defense could be enhanced to the point of resisting the attack of a quasi-legendary supreme master. Whoosh! 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 The spiral blade light became more and more concentrated, and a strong blade wind erupted, blowing away a lot of the surrounding fog. In the thin fog, a human figure slowly appeared, and it was the brown-robed old man. Damn! What kind of blade art is this? The brown-robed old man didn't think much of the returning saber wheel at first, but later on, he realized that the strength of the returning saber wheel was increasing very quickly, and it was no less than a great accomplishment supreme martial art. If it was one-on-one, he naturally wouldn't let Lan Yu continuously increase the power of the returning saber wheel. But now he was fighting 1 against 2. Do you think I'm afraid of them? Whirlpool transforming Dragon Palm. A whirlpool gradually formed with the brown-robed old man as the center, and when the spiral blade light touched the whirlpool, it was immediately sucked in. Soon, the whirlpool became a huge monster, and it was enough to affect the use of the returning saber wheel. When Lan Yu stopped using the returning saber wheel, the brown-robed old man was completely wrapped by the black energy ball, and the black energy ball was expanding rapidly, and it had already expanded to a larger area than the attack of the returning saber wheel. A terrifying gravitational force acted on Lan Yu and Yi Chen, and it was trying to suck them into the black energy ball. Even if they used the back of their heads to think, they knew that once they were sucked in, it would really be disastrous. Let's work together. Lan Yu and Yi Chen once again used the Tyrant Blade Chop, and the Tyrant Sword Style, and the Overbearing Blade Aura, and Sword Aura suddenly combined and bombarded the black energy ball. Unfortunately, the black energy ball had already formed, and just like the previous returning saber wheel, its power had accumulated to an extremely terrifying level. And even if it didn't reach the level of legendary supreme master, it was not far from it. Retreat! Since they couldn't break the black energy ball, the two could only retreat. They didn't believe that this black energy ball could expand without limit. However, the black energy ball's gravitational force was too strong, and the two's flying speed was very slow. Sometimes they would fly a bit, and then be pulled back a bit. It was extremely strenuous. Go to hell. Just as the two thought. The black energy ball indeed couldn't expand without limit. If it could, who could be its opponent? However, it was enough to deal with two experts who had just stepped into the quasi-legendary Supreme Master realm. Rumble. The surface of the black energy ball undulated, and soon, the entire black energy ball turned into a black dragon, pouncing towards Yi Chun and Lan Yu. The black dragon's body was incomparably heavy, but when it moved, its speed was astonishing. The 11th layer of the divine fire acupoint seemed to be unable to bear its might, and it slightly trembled. Lan Yu, come here. Yi Chun grabbed Lan Yu's hand, bringing her into his protective range. Next, Yi Chun's heart force, sword energy, and soul force all erupted as he displayed the 5 elements sword art. Extreme Prosperity Decline. Although Extreme Prosperity Decline hadn't reached major completion, it was still Yi Chun's strongest defensive sword art. At this moment, any offensive sword art was useless. Only a defensive sword art could protect him slightly. The black dragon crazily tore at the multicolored light ball. Inside the multicolored light ball, Yi Chun's hands could no longer be seen. The speed at which he swung the heavenly sword became faster and faster, surpassing one limit after another. Under the pressure of life and death, Yi Chun's heart force reached a higher level, and the defensive power of Extreme Prosperity Decline reached a new peak. Rumble. However, the black dragon's power was too great. The multicolored light ball was still shattered. The black dragon bit onto Yi Chun's body and swooped down together with Lan Yu. A deep mark was plowed on the ground. It was unknown how far away the black dragon's power was before it gradually dissipated. In a huge pit, Yi Chun and Lan Yu were hugging each other. Their clothes were torn, and they were half naked. On Yi Chun's chest there was a big hole. This was the injury caused by the black dragon. So powerful. Hugging Lan Yu, Yi Chun slowly stood up. The big hole in his chest was quickly healed under the nourishment of the inextinguishable power. He actually didn't die. The brown-robed elder was very surprised. His whirlpool dragon palm had accumulated a lot of power. It was enough to injure a quasi-legendary supremacy. A peak super supremacy would most likely die from it. Of course, if he encountered a quasi-legendary supremacy, the other party wouldn't let him accumulate power, and would have already broken this move. This was the difference in strength. How could he know that Yi Chun's immortal sword body could resist a peak super supremacy's attack? Plus, he had used the 5 elements sword art to offset a part of the black dragon's power. The true destructive power of the black dragon didn't exceed his limit. Chapter 1343. Thank you. Lan Yu's face was a bit red. At this critical moment, she wanted to take out her courtyard with layers upon layers of arrays. With the courtyard's defensive power, not to mention the brown-robed old man, who was only a quasi-legendary supreme expert. Even a legendary supreme expert wouldn't be able to do anything to the two of them. However, who would have thought that Yi Chun would actually grab her hand and pull her into his protective range, causing her to be momentarily dazed. It was precisely this moment that she lost the opportunity to take out her courtyard. Fortunately, Yi Chun's defense was strong enough. I can't take such risks in the future, Lan Yu thought. Can you still fight? Yi Chun asked Lan Yu. Of course. Lan Yu's body flashed, and a set of clothes appeared. Let's take turns to attack. Don't give him the chance to use this move. Yi Chun was naturally afraid of this palm technique. This palm technique could absorb other people's energy and turn it into an attack. If he didn't absorb the power of returning blade wheel, tyrant blade chop, and tyrant sword style, the palm just now would have lost at least 70% of its power. Yes, Lan Yu nodded. She didn't expect the opponent to have such an abnormal palm technique. Go! The two of them attacked the brown-robed old man from the left and right. Good timing. The brown-robed old man could see that Yi Chun's defense was stronger, so he took the lead and attacked Lan Yu. His palm struck out, and the power was boundless. Splendor of youth. Lan Yu also had a defensive blade technique. In fact, with her speed, She could completely avoid it, but she wanted to create an opportunity for Yi Chun. Rumble. Lan Yu, who was wrapped in petals, was like a reef, enduring the impact of the monstrous palm energy. Suddenly, the petals bloomed, and a peerless blade light slashed at the brown-robed old man. It was the void-breaking blade. The brown-robed old man frowned and smashed the blade energy with one palm. Illusion sword style. At this moment, Yi Chun used his strongest sword technique, illusion sword style. A bubble of sword light spread and enveloped the brown-robed old man. In an instant, the brown-robed old man felt that he was surrounded by sword light, as if he had come to a world of sword light. Layer after layer of sword light was slashed, and the brown-robed old man's arms went numb. There were too many sword light, and they were endless. Not good, it's an illusion. By the time the brown-robed old man came to his senses, Yi Chun's sword had already pierced into the brown-robed old man's chest. Poochie! How could the brown-robed old man's supreme armor block the piercing of the heaven sword? It was directly pierced through. Scram! The brown-robed old man was horrified, and sent Yi Chun flying with a palm strike. Who would have thought that just as Yi Chun was blown away, Lan Yu would rush over and use the incomplete Mirage Moon Blade. If it was before, the Mirage Moon Blade might not be effective. After all, the illusion of the Mirage Moon Blade was much weaker than the illusory sword style. However, at this time, the brown-robed old man was injured by the sky sword, and his origin was damaged. Suddenly, another Mirage Moon Blade came, and he was heavily injured again. The blue blade chi cut off the brown-robed old man's left arm. I'm going to die from anger. The brown-robed elder went crazy. He, a dignified quasi-legendary supreme being, was actually injured by the hands of two juniors. What shocked him the most was that both of their weapons were sage artifacts. Sage artifacts contained special powers. It was fine if they didn't hit him, but once they did, it would be extremely difficult for him to recover. Don't give him a chance to breathe. Yi Chun rubbed his body and attacked again. This time, it was the sword burial art. Next, it was Lan Yu's tyrant blade chop. The two of them took turns to attack the brown-robed old man, not giving him a chance to recover. If you were beaten back, I would attack. If I was beaten back, you would attack. Although it was just a few moves, the two of them cooperated seamlessly. For a moment, the heavily injured brown-robed old man was completely suppressed. He didn't even have the slightest chance to turn the tables. If this continues, I will be beaten to death. Thinking of this, the brown-robed old man disregarded the fact that he was wide open and wanted to use the Vortex Dragon Palm. As long as he used the Vortex Dragon Palm, the two of them wouldn't be able to injure him. However, Yi Chun didn't give the brown-robed old man any chance and attacked with the sword burial art. Although the power of the sword burial art couldn't compare to the tyrant sword style and the illusion sword style, the power of space and time could slow down the brown-robed old man's speed and reaction. On the battlefield, there were countless changes. If one was slow, the others wouldn't be. Lan Yu's void-shattering blade hit the brown-robed old man and sent him flying. The supreme armor on his body was tattered and had almost no defensive effect. Aqua light armor. The brown-robed old man was a quasi-legendary supreme being after all. Although he was enraged by the repeated injuries, he didn't lose his mind. He immediately used a supreme defensive martial art, aqua light armor. The defense of the aqua light armor wasn't any weaker than the supreme armor. It was roughly equivalent to the defense of a rank 4 supreme armor. Of course, the supreme armor didn't need much power to maintain, but the aqua light armor was equivalent to using a supreme martial art continuously. The consumption rate was thousands of times higher. Wait for me. With the protection of the aqua light armor, the brown-robed old man's speed soared. Where do you think you're going? Lan Yu, who had comprehended the essence of the word line, chased after him. She slashed a few times on the brown-robed old man's body. However, she was quickly repelled by the brown-robed old man's palm. It wasn't that the brown-robed old man couldn't beat the two of them. It was just that his injuries were too severe. The more they fought, the weaker he became. Yi Chun's speed wasn't as fast as Lan Yu. Seeing that Lan Yu was repelled, he gave up the chase. He escaped. Lan Yu was a little discouraged. Yi Chen sighed. Even if a quasi-legendary supreme is injured, he isn't someone to be trifled with. It seems like we have to re-evaluate the strength of quasi-legendary supreme beings. And if it wasn't for your illusion sword style injuring him, it would be very difficult for us to beat him. Lan Yu nodded. After repelling the brown-robed old man, the two continued to explore the 11th layer of the Divine Fire Cave. Flame Iron. 9 turbid gold. Turbid Sky Stone. Those who could come to the 11th layer of the Divine Fire Cave were all experts among experts, and experts were destined to be few in number. With fewer people coming, there would naturally be more treasures left behind. It all depended on one's luck. In just half a month, Yi Chen had obtained 3 kinds of supreme metals. Each of them was extremely precious and could be used to forge level 3 supreme weapons. Among them, the most precious was the 9 turbid gold. This kind of metal could be used to forge level 4 supreme weapons. Turbid Sky Stone was not inferior to the 9 turbid gold, but it was a pity that it was too little. It was only the size of a courtyard. Adding the Azure Star Iron that he had obtained before entering the Wilderness God Continent, Yi Chen had a total of 4 kinds of supreme metals. Among them, the Azure Star Iron was the largest. It was a metal planet with a diameter of several thousand miles. The Flame Iron was the second largest, which was only a dozen miles in size. The 9 turbid gold and the turbid Sky Stone added together were only half a mile in size. Yi Chen planned to learn the supreme swordsmithing technique when he had the time. Yi Chen, look, there seems to be a spatial fluctuation over there. On this day, Lan Yu and Yi Chen both discovered an obscure spatial fluctuation. Let's go and take a look, Yi Chen said. In a short while, the two arrived at the source of the spatial fluctuation. The source was in the magma lake. For some unknown reason, the magma lake was boiling violently. The spatial fluctuation was coming from the lake, and it was getting more and more obvious. Zichen, do you want to die? A cold voice came out. Chapter 1344. Huojin, you're so despicable. We discovered the entrance to the 12th layer of the Divine Fire Cave together. Since you're so heartless, don't blame us for being unjust. As the voice resounded, the spatial fluctuations grew stronger and stronger. The two sides seemed to be fighting. Yi Chen and Lan Yu looked at each other. The 12th layer of the Divine Fire Cave? Lan Yu couldn't help but ask. You're right. There's a 12th layer. Yi Chen opened his netherworld sacred eye and looked down through the magma lake. Vaguely, Yi Chen saw 3 figures fighting. It seemed to be 2 against 1. They were standing on a teleportation platform. The shockwaves of their battle shook the teleportation platform and transmitted spatial energy. This was also the reason why the magma lake was boiling. Fighting 1 against 2, the figure in the middle was naturally not their match. He was struck by the 2 and died. Let's go. Yi Chen saw the 2 figures flying up. They were probably trying to see if anyone was attracted by the spatial fluctuations. Rumble. Although Yi Chen was quick to react, the 11th layer of the Divine Fire Cave was a flat plain. Before he could fly far, the magma lake exploded and 2 figures broke through the magma. Looking around, the 2 quickly discovered Yi Chen and Lan Yu. Where do you think you're going? The sea of fire is boundless. One of the 2 was a sinister-looking middle-aged man in red robes. He shouted and clasped his hands together, pushing a palm in the direction where Yi Chen and Lan Yu were running. Boom! Like a landslide or a tsunami, the violent fire wave had yet to approach, but Yi Chen and Lan Yu already found it hard to breathe. This sinister-looking middle-aged man seemed to be stronger than the brown-robed old man. His palm energy was boundlessly tyrannical. Just as the fire wave was about to reach them, Yi Chen and Lan Yu turned around and slashed at the fire wave. Tyrant Blade Slash and Tyrant Sword form were supreme martial arts at great completion. With the 2 combined, no matter how strong the fire wave was, it would still be split apart. Borrowing the rebounding force, Yi Chen and Lan Yu's speed continued to rise. Black Fiend, don't let them escape, the sinister-looking middle-aged man said to the black-robed man. The black-robed man nodded. No one has ever found the 12th layer. There must be divine stones inside. With them, our supreme weapons can be upgraded to saint weapons. The one called Zichen was the great elder of the rank 6 purple blood tribe. His strength was at the peak super sovereign level. The three of them discovered the entrance to the 12th floor at the Divine Fire Cave's 11th floor at the same time. Zichen thought that he was fast, so he wasn't afraid of the other two. Little did he know that the temperature of the 12th floor was more than 100 times higher than the 11th floor. Dark cyan flames flew everywhere, restricting Zichen's speed. Next, the sinister-looking middle-aged man and the black-robed middle-aged man took advantage of their quasi-legendary sovereigns to launch a sneak attack on Zichen. Zichen naturally wasn't willing to die just like that. He desperately returned to the teleportation platform. The four of them chased after her in a frenzy, one in front and one behind. Lan Yu had comprehended the essence of the word line, so her speed was the fastest among the four. Yichen was proficient in the space-time profound, so his speed was not much slower. On the other hand, the two middle-aged men were falling further and further behind. Huo Wujin, forget it. These two are the same as Zichen. They are both faster than us. Black Fiend stopped chasing. Count them lucky. Huo Wujin knew that he couldn't catch up to them. At their level, speed was very important. Unfortunately, it was too hard to increase one's speed. The best way was to grasp the space-time profound. The more profound the space-time profound, the faster one's speed would be. If one reached perfection in space-time profound, no one would be able to catch up, unless the other party's space-time profound was also at perfection. Fortunately, we ran fast. One of them is the Hall Master of the Divine Fire Tribe, Huo Wujin, and the other is the third elder of the 7th rank tribe, the Earth Fiend Tribe. Seeing that Huo Wujin and Black Fiend didn't catch up, Lan Yu smiled and said to Yichen, "Although we found the entrance to the 12th layer, we can't enter it in a short time. Let's go back first." His immortal sword body could only defend against the attacks of peak super supremes. If he encountered a quasi-legendary supremes, it would be hard to defend against it, not to mention two quasi-legendary supremes at the same time. Alright, we'll come again in the future. I don't believe that they can get all the benefits in the 12th layer. They might be unlucky and get nothing. Lan Yu giggled. After leaving the Divine Fire Cave, the two returned to the Eternal Tribe. Inside a barren mountain near the Eternal Tribe, Yichen held a Divine Fire Stone in his hand and tried to draw out the flame of the stone with his sword energy. Boom! For the first time, Yichen directly detonated the Divine Fire Stone due to his inexperience. The dark green flame burned a big hole in the barren mountain. At the crucial moment, Yichen hurriedly used his sword energy to protect his body. Otherwise, even with the immortal sword body, he would be greatly injured and waste a lot of his sword energy and inextinguishable energy. Too violent. Yichen shook his head and continued to test. Once, twice. After the 10th time, Yichen finally found a balance point. From the 11th Divine Fire Stone, he drew out a flame that was as thick as a pinky finger. The flame flickered as if it would explode at any time. Split. The finger-size flame separated into two even thinner flames, which then turned into 2, 4, and then 8. When the flame was as thin as a string, Yichen opened his mouth and sucked in a bit of flame into his body. Pitter-patter. His body shook violently. Yichen felt as if there were countless bombs buried in his body. As soon as the flame entered his body, it immediately swept out, causing Yichen's entire body to burn. It really works. Yichen could feel that something in his body was being burned away. It should be some invisible impurities. Regardless of whether one was a super supreme, legendary supreme, or even a demigod, they would all have impurities within their bodies. Only by becoming a true god would one have no impurities, and their bodies would be pure and untainted. 1 wisp, 2 wisps, 3 wisps. Using the Divine Firestone's flame to refine the spirit body was a very boring thing. If the flame was too big, not only would it not refine the spirit body, but it would also burn the spirit body's yuan qi. If the flame was too small, it would be too slow, and it was too difficult to control. As time passed and experience increased, Yichen found that the best method was to split a Divine Fire Stone into 10,000 wisps of flame. Before he knew it, a month had passed. Boom! Powerful life fluctuations burst out, and Yi Chen's entire body floated in the air. He didn't rely on Sword Yuan or any other power but his own body. One had to know that there were many restrictions on the Wild's God continent. It was impossible to float with just one's own life magnetic field. Yi Chen could float because his spirit body had broken through from the peak of the 8th rank to the 9th rank. The life magnetic field of a 9th rank spirit body was so strong that it could offset the gravity of the Wild's God continent. After his spirit body reached the 9th rank, Yi Chen felt that his immortal sword body was also improving. It was 10 times stronger, and the two formed a close connection. Finally, a 9th rank spirit body. Yi Chen let out a breath. Chapter 1345. Now, my immortal sword body should be able to resist the attack of a quasi-legend supreme. The upgrade of the immortal sword body to the 9th grade had increased the grade of the immortal sword body, approaching the 9th transformation golden body. At this stage, the defense was no longer just pure strength, but a more rational structure, which required a powerful life magnetic field to support. Apart from the immortal sword body, there was another great benefit. Yi Chen could feel his lifespan increasing, but by how much, Yi Chen didn't know. Such a surging immortal power. Closing his eyes, Yi Chen seemed to be able to see a black ocean inside his heart space. The ocean was surging violently, and before the first wave subsided, another wave would rise. The great increase in defense made Yi Chen want to go to the 12th layer of the Divine Fire Cave. The damaged origin of the Heaven Sword was equivalent to an Earth Saint tool with 4 divine stones. If it recovered, it would probably be equivalent to an Earth Saint tool with 6 or 7 divine stones. Yi Chen didn't know if the divine stones could restore the origin of the Heaven Sword, but he had to give it a try. After all, in the Wildness God continent, his strength wasn't even first-rate, only second-rate. First-rate was legendary supreme. If he wanted to make a difference, he had to improve his strength in all aspects, including the divine tool. I'll go with you. Originally, Yi Chen didn't want to bring Lan Yu. Although her battle strength was similar to his, her defense was too weak. Unexpectedly, Lan Yu smiled mysteriously and said that he didn't need to worry about her. She had a way to save her life. Left with no choice, Yi Chen nodded and agreed. She could go by herself without him. There was no difference. Arriving at the Godfire Cave again, the two were about to hand in their Godfire Supreme tags when the leader of the Blaze Hall, Huo Wubian, seemed to have recognized them. He yelled, "You two come with me to the Godfire tribe. If you dare to disobey, don't blame me for killing you." Yi Chen's face darkened as he gave Lan Yu a look. Whoosh, whoosh. The two's speed increased as they flew toward the entrance of the Divine Fire Cave. Courting death, Huo Wubian was furious. These two people actually didn't care about the Divine Fire Tribe's orders. Huo Wubian was a quasi-legendary paragon. In terms of strength, he wasn't any weaker than Huo Wujin. His weapon was a heaven-piercing halberd that was wreathed in green flames. As the flames curled up, Huo Wubian's halberd swept towards Yi Chen and Lan Yu. Although this halberd strike seemed extremely domineering, Yi Chen and Lan Yu felt as though the world had been flattened by this halberd, and their path forward had been cut off. Break! At the critical moment, Yi Chen used the illusory sword style. Bubbles of sword light spread out, causing Huo Wubian to fall into a trance for a moment. Taking advantage of this moment, Yi Chen and Lan Yu entered the entrance of the Divine Fire Cave. Huo Wubian's face turned gloomy when he woke up. This was too embarrassing. He was a quasi-legendary paragon, yet he actually suffered a loss in the hands of Yi Chen. Although he was only confused for a moment, it could still be considered as being confused. If Yi Chen didn't choose to enter the Divine Fire Cave and attacked him instead, he would have suffered even more. This Huo Wujin, why didn't he tell us about his opponent's strength? Such a level of sword art can already threaten quasi-legendary paragons. Huo Wubian turned his head and glanced at his subordinates, feeling resentful. As a quasi-legendary paragon, he still wanted some face. Not being able to make Yi Chen and Lan Yu stay in front of his subordinates had caused his prestige to be damaged. "You guys guard here. I'll go in for a while," Huo Wubian ordered. Yes. The two vice hall masters of the fiery blaze hall hurriedly accepted the order. The hall master was more concerned about his face. As his subordinates, they absolutely couldn't reveal any abnormalities. Otherwise, they would have to bear the consequences. After entering the divine fire cave, the two of them rushed to the second level. After the two of them left for a while, Wubian appeared. Without any hesitation, he directly went to the second level. He was very clear that the other party was definitely aiming for the 12th level. Only a few people knew about the 12th level of the divine fire cave, and outsiders were definitely not allowed to know about it. After half a day, Yi Chen and Lan Yu arrived at the entrance of the 12th level. There was a teleportation platform there. Let's go up. The two of them arrived at the teleportation platform and activated its teleportation power. Buzz! With a flash of light, the two of them disappeared from the 11th level. When they reappeared, they were in a dark green world. The flames here were lumps of terrifying dark green flames that were flying everywhere without any pattern. The temperature was at least 100 times higher than the 11th level. So hot. Lan Yu had already activated her desolate origin barrier. Even so, the extremely high temperature still transmitted in and consumed her desolate origin barrier. But the temperature of the divine firestone's flames is slightly higher. Yi Chen nodded. Lan Yu said, the flames of the divine firestone are dark blue flames, which are definitely hotter than the flames here. I wonder if there's a 13th level in the divine fire cave. If there is, it might be dark blue flames that are comparable to the flames of the divine firestone. Every level of the divine fire cave was an independent space that was extremely vast. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had stayed in the 12th level for 10 days. Although we didn't find any divine stones, this trip wasn't in vain with so many of them. Lan Yu smiled. In these 10 days, the two of them had obtained 200 pieces of divine firestone each. One must know that after the spirit body reached the 9th rank, it could still continue to improve. Early stage, mid-stage, late stage, peak stage, and finally the perfected spirit body. Therefore, with so many divine firestones, Yi Chen could definitely improve his spirit body to the mid-stage of the 9th rank. As for late stage, he would need even more divine firestones. What the two of them didn't know was that Wubian had been searching for them in the 12th level for 10 days. Wujin and Heisha haven't come out yet. They've only sent me a message through their voice transmission token. I'm also sending them a message now. After searching for 10 days without finding Yi Chen and Lan Yu, Wubian could only take out his voice transmission token and send a message. A short moment later, another person's voice came from the token. Wubian, Heisha and I have already split up. I don't believe that we can't find them with just the three of us. Alright. Wubian kept the voice transmission token and continued his search. Very quickly, 20 days had passed. Yi Chen and Lan Yu had been in the 12th level for a month. What's that? On this day, Yi Chen and Lan Yu saw an intense radiance in front of them. The radiance flickered a few times before it immediately dimmed. Yi Chen and Lan Yu weren't the only ones who saw it. Wubian, Wujin, and Heisha had also seen it. It's a divine stone. This is the radiance of a divine stone. Heisha's eyes emitted a frightening light. At their level, it was too difficult to increase their strength. As long as they could obtain a divine stone, they could upgrade their supreme weapon to a saint artifact, greatly increasing their strength. It's the radiance of a divine stone. Wubian's breathing was ragged. There was no one who didn't want a divine stone, and he was no exception. Both supreme weapons and supreme armors could be merged with divine stones to become saint artifacts. Chapter 1346. Yi Chen. That should be the radiance of the divine stone. While flying, Lan Yu said to Yi Chen. Yi Chen said, it would be best if that's the case, but the radiance just now was too dazzling. If there are other people on the 12th level, they will definitely be able to see it. We have to be careful. Although his defense had increased greatly, Yi Chen still didn't dare to underestimate a legendary supremacy. The place where the divine stone radiance disappeared was very far away. Yi Chen and Lan Yu had flown for more than half a day, But they still hadn't reached their destination. At this moment, a black and white palm print approached from afar, slapping toward Yi Chen and Lan Yu at an astonishing speed. Facing this palm print, Yi Chen felt as if heaven and earth had become a huge millstone, and he was unable to move. The sword energy around his body showed faint signs of being squeezed out. What a powerful supreme martial art! Yi Chen was shocked. He unsheathed his heavenly sword and swung out a vigorous and domineering sword energy. Lan Yu was a step slower than Yi Chen, and her supreme saber technique, Tyrant Saber Slash, followed closely. Boom! The black and white palm print smashed the sword energy and saber energy one after another. But it was also worn down quite a bit. Its power was less than 10%, and it was easily shattered by Yi Chen and Lan Yu. The next moment, a black shadow appeared in front of the two of them. It was the third elder of the Earth Fiend tribe, Black Fiend. It's the third elder of the Earth Fiend tribe, Black Fiend. His supreme martial art is the Yin-Yang Millstone, and it's very powerful. Lan Yu sent a voice transmission to Yi Chen. Yi Chen replied, "I'll block him in a while. You attack with all your might from the side. Don't worry about hurting me." All right. Lan Yu had a slight understanding of Yi Chen's defense. Kill. Without any words, Black Fiend charged over and struck out with both palms. Streams of black and white palm prints spread out. Block. Yi Chen took a deep breath and displayed his defensive sword technique. Suddenly, the five-colored sword light filled the air and quickly spread out, like a huge five-colored light ball. The black and white palm prints fell on the five-colored light ball like rain, making a loud noise. After only a moment, the five-colored light ball exploded, and the remaining palm prints fiercely hit Yi Chen's body. Dang 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 dang. The sound of iron being struck rang out. Although these palm prints were extremely powerful, Yi Chen's body was not weak at all. Not only did he not explode, but he even bounced off some of the palm prints. How is this possible? The Black Fiend was taken aback. His yin-yang grindstone could grind anything, and it was easy for it to break through defenses. Yet the other party was able to block it with just his physical defense? 36 void-shattering blades. Lan Yu seized the opportunity and launched 36 void-shattering blades at the Black Fiend. Each blade was fatal, sealing off the Black Fiend's escape route. Of course, Yi Chen was inevitably included. Caught off guard, the Black Fiend only had time to wave his hand to set up a layer of black barrier. The black barrier collapsed under the dozens of void-shattering blades, and the remaining void-shattering blades surged forward, wrapping around the Black Fiend and twisting crazily. Break. The Black Fiend was a quasi-legend supremacy after all. His desolate essence was incomparably pure. When he erupted, he forced out the fierce blade force, and there were some bloodstains on his body. Illusory sword style. A dreamy sword light bubble spread out and instantly enveloped the Black Fiend. Not good. The Black Fiend was shocked. He knew that he was hallucinating. Fall. With a wave of the heaven sword, the Black Fiend's head fell to the ground. Yi Chen's figure suddenly appeared a few hundred meters behind the Black Fiend. Tyrant Blade Slash. Lan Yu leaped up and held the blue moon saber with both hands. She slashed at the headless Black Fiend's body, and the dark blue saber gleam was cold and sharp. In the middle, the saber gleam paused for a moment, but the obstruction was quickly eliminated. The saber gleam slashed down from above, and the Black Fiend's body was naturally split into two. Death Cleave. Revolving saber wheel. Yi Chen and Lan Yu took the front and back, sandwiching the Black Fiend in the middle. Each of them released their most intensive attacks. At this moment, they couldn't give the other party a chance to take a breather. Otherwise, everything they had done before would be for naught. I, the Black Fiend, am a quasi-legend supremacy, and yet I am reduced to such a state. The Black Fiend was stunned and couldn't think straight. No. An angry roar sounded from the countless sword chi and saber gleams. A silvery figure soared into the sky, bouncing off all the sword chi and saber gleams. In the Wildscod continent, the majority of quasi-legend legends didn't have any saint artifacts. Therefore, their strength was at the level of a true quasi-legend legend. Correspondingly, their qualities were naturally very impressive in all aspects. For example, the Black Fiend's martial path Yuan spirit was close to the silver level, and he was only one step away from cultivating a silver martial path Yuan spirit. Once he had a silver martial path Yuan spirit, he would be a true legend supremacy, and his strength would skyrocket to an extremely high level. Seriously speaking, although Heavenly Lord Rot Devil was also a quasi-legend supremacy, he was far weaker than the Black Fiend in terms of strength. Heavenly Lord Rot Devil relied on supreme martial arts to have the strength of a quasi-legend supremacy. Of course, this was mainly because Heavenly Lord Rot Devil's strength had been greatly depleted. After all, when he was at his peak, he was a true legend supremacy. Quasi-silver martial path Yuan spirit. Each inside. It seemed like he couldn't kill the other party. If the other party was the same as Heavenly Lord Rot Devil, he was confident that he could kill him. Heavenly Lord Rot Devil's martial arts were only slightly more powerful, but he had lost too much of his strength. When my sword intent reaches the 9th step, I'll be able to eliminate the hidden danger of my bronze martial path Yuan spirit. I should be able to step into the silver level. Let's go. With a thought, Yi Chen made a prompt decision. His figure shot out, and Lan Yu followed closely behind. Damn it! The Black Fiend's quasi-silver martial path Yuan spirit shone brightly, and the scattered flesh and blood were sucked back, forming an intact body. Of course, his aura was much weaker. Black Fiend, what's wrong? Huo Wujin rushed over from afar. The Black Fiend's face was ashen. Don't mention it. They're just ahead. Let's catch up. The Black Fiend didn't want Huo Wujin to know about his miserable state. At the same time, he was a little worried that Huo Wujin would kill him after dealing with Yi Chen and Lan Yu. This wasn't impossible. With Yi Chen and Lan Yu's speed, the Black Fiend and Huo Wujin wouldn't be able to catch up. 2 hours passed, and the dazzling divine stones lit up again. Over there. The two were overjoyed, and their speed increased again. Finally, the two saw the source of the light. In their line of sight, a tall platform stood on the dark green ground. On the platform, the radiance shone, condensing into a light barrier. Within the light barrier, 3 mystical stones floated. Each stone was like a primordial mountain. They were only the size of a palm, but the feeling they gave off was incomparably heavy. 3 divine stones. Lan Yu couldn't help but blurt out. Break! Yi Chen slashed at the light barrier. But it was a pity that the light barrier was incomparably sturdy, and the sword chi was bounced off. Chapter 1347. Yi Chen, let's attack together. Lan Yu drew her blue moon saber. Boom, 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 boom. The two joined hands to attack the barrier. Instantly, the barrier trembled violently like a rubber ball, constantly sinking and bulging, while the divine stones inside remained motionless. After an entire 2 hours, a crack finally appeared on the light barrier. Let's work harder. Yi Chen attacked tirelessly. If they couldn't get the divine stones now, it would be 1,000 times more difficult for them to get them when the others came. More and more cracks appeared on the barrier, making it look like a hollow crystal on the verge of shattering. Bang! A crisp shattering sound resounded as the barrier shattered. Whoosh! 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 The 3 divine stones seemed to have a mind of their own, as they flew off in 3 different directions, at an astonishing speed. Don't let them get away. Lan Yu's figure flashed as she chased after one of the divine stones. Having comprehended the essence of the word line, her speed was extremely fast. In just a short moment, she had caught the divine stone. It was strange that the power contained in the divine stone could be said to be terrifying, but it didn't harm anyone. It was as if whoever touched it first would possess it and wouldn't resist. Yi Chen's speed was only a bit slower than Lan Yu's. He soon caught up to one of the divine stones. Now there was only one left, and it had flown far away. Haha, it's a divine stone. A figure suddenly appeared in the direction the divine stone flew to. It was the Divine Fire Tribe's Raging Blaze Hall's Hallmaster, Huo Wubian. He grabbed the divine stone and laughed heartily. What dogs hit luck? Lan Yu was indignant. There are still 2 more. Let's go first. Through the Netherworld's sacred eye, Yi Chen saw Huo Wujin and He Sha, 3 quasi-legendary sovereigns. Even he couldn't guarantee that he could resist them. It was best to leave first. For him, one divine stone was enough. As long as he could restore the origin of the heavenly sword, his attack would be more than 100 times stronger. Of course, it would be even better if he had 2 divine stones. Damn it! Wait until I fuse this divine stone into my fire divine halberd. Then, your time will come. Huo Wubian knew that he wouldn't be able to catch up to Yi Chun and Lan Yu, so he gave up. Most importantly, he had obtained a divine stone. For now, he could put the matter of hunting down Yi Chun and Lan Yu to the back of his mind. There was nothing more important than his own matters. I'll also leave first. Otherwise, Huo Wujin and He Sha will definitely be jealous when they see that I have divine stones. Huo Wubian pondered for a moment before flying in the direction he came from. 15 minutes later, Huo Wujin and He Sha appeared. Nothing. Huo Wujin and He Sha exchanged a glance. They had clearly sensed that the source of the radiance was here. The Black Fiend closed his eyes and carefully sensed for a moment. Swish! His eyes opened, and a cold light shone in them. Someone came just now. 3 people. One of them is from your divine flame tribe. He should be Huo Wubian. The other 2 are the people we're chasing. They got the God Stone. Huo Wujin's face was dark. He did not doubt the Black Fiend's ability. The Black Fiend was proficient in the profundities of Yin and Yang, and he knew a Yin-Yang secret art that could sense the aura left behind by others. Let's not waste any more time. Let's chase after them, and not let them leave the 12th level. Once they left the 12th level, they would be free to fly. Following the aura, the 2 chased in the direction where Yi Chun and Lan Yu flew, raising their speed to the limit. Huo Wujin and the Black Fiend have caught up. Yi Chun was constantly paying attention to the situation behind him. The Netherworld Sacred Eye had given him time to prepare. What should we do? Actually, Lan Yu could take out her courtyard and enter it. With the defensive power of the courtyard's array, not to mention the 2 of them, who were only quasi-legend rank sovereigns, even a true legend rank sovereign would be able to hold on for a while. During this time, they could completely fuse the divine stone into the saint artifact and increase its power. At that time, they would have a fighting chance. But there was a problem. She didn't want to expose her courtyard. Once it was exposed, they would definitely guess that she was from the Unfalling Eagle tribe. She didn't want to return to the tribe so quickly. Their speed is a bit slower than ours. Let's see if we can return to the 11th level. As long as they return to the 11th level, they would be safe. The 12th level would consume too much sword energy. After flying for a while, looks like we won't be able to reach the 11th level. Lan Yu sighed. The 12th level's terrain was actually moving. After flying for a while, they were completely lost in the 12th level. Since we're already here, let's find a place to fuse the divine stone into the saint artifact. Fusing the divine stone into the saint artifact was a very dangerous matter. The slightest carelessness could cause the saint artifact to be destroyed. A supreme artifact could only contain a limited amount of divine stone. The more perfect a supreme artifact was, the more divine stone it could contain. Apart from that, if the method of fusing the divine stone wasn't ingenious and meticulous enough, the saint artifact would also be destroyed. It was like a person who could eat a bowl of rice, but if you asked him to eat a bowl of rice in one go, he would definitely be stuffed to death. Although the 12th level's temperature was high, there were still mountains. A tall mountain appeared in front of the 2 of them. The 2 of them discovered something strange. The temperature in the mountain was countless times lower than outside. Furthermore, the mountain rocks were extremely hard. The 2 of them used all their strength, but they could only leave a mark on the mountain wall. Fortunately, this mountain seemed to have been visited by someone. There was an unfathomable cave on the mountain wall. It must be a legendary rank sovereign. Lan Yu guessed. Yi Chun nodded. With their strength, digging an unfathomable cave was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Only legendary rank sovereigns could do it easily. Unexpectedly, this 12th level had long been discovered by someone else. It was just that it was kept a secret. As for the divine stone, it would be obtained by those who were fated. It wasn't guaranteed that whoever came first would be able to obtain it. Yi Chun scanned the cave with his Netherworld Sacred Eye. Seeing that there was no danger in the cave, the 2 of them rushed in, and moved a huge boulder to block the entrance. If someone wanted to force their way in, they would have to break the boulder first. The more dangerous thing was that if the other party came in, the two of them would have nowhere to go. They could only fight with all their strength. The cave lit up. The two of them meditated on the spot, far away from each other. Taking out the divine stone and the heavenly sword, Yi Chen took a deep breath and slowly stuck the divine stone on the heavenly sword, establishing a connection between the two. Then, he urged the heavenly sword to absorb the divine stone's power. This process was very tedious. The divine stone contained too much power, and the absorption speed couldn't be too fast. It could only be done bit by bit. Buzz! Like dry and cracked land meeting rainwater, the heavenly sword hungrily absorbed the divine stone's power. Yi Chen vaguely discovered that the damage source inside the heavenly sword was slowly recovering. It's really effective, Yi Chen thought. His growth time was too short. He had too many shortcomings. Currently, only the sacred tool could help him close the gap between him and the others. He was at a disadvantage in other aspects. This couldn't be rushed. Chapter 1348. On the other side, the blue moon saber in Lan Yu's hand emitted a sharp aura. Unlike the heavenly sword, the blue moon saber's origin wasn't damaged, and the divine stone was used to increase its power. The slightest mistake might cause the blue moon saber to break. Compared to the blue moon saber, it was much easier to fuse the divine stone into the heavenly sword, mainly because the divine stone could repair the heavenly sword. Strand by strand, the power of the divine stone flowed into the origin of the heavenly sword, causing the rust on the heavenly sword to gradually disappear. The heavenly sword became translucent and sharp, displaying the peerless magnificence that a sacred sword should have. Boom! The cavern trembled. Yi Chen and Lan Yu raised their eyes and looked at the entrance of the cavern. Outside the entrance, Huo Wujin and He Sha were attacking the boulder that blocked the entrance. He Sha, are you sure they're inside? Huo Wujin asked as he attacked the boulder. He Sha replied, they're definitely inside. Damn it, why is this boulder so hard? We can only leave a dent on it with our strength. Huo Wujin said, the boulder in the divine fire cave isn't ordinary. After being refined with high temperature, it's even harder than an ordinary sovereign artifact. However, the boulder's energy is limited, so we can definitely shatter it. Boom, boom, boom. The two of them attacked the boulder again and again, and gradually, cracks appeared on the boulder. It was a sign that it was about to collapse. Just a little more. Huo Wujin circulated his desolate yuan, and a fiery dragon attacked the boulder, while He Sha's yin-yang millstone crushed the boulder like a giant pulverizer. Boom! Finally, the boulder exploded, sending rubble flying everywhere. Let's go in. Huo Wujin charged into the cavern first, followed by He Sha. The two of them weren't worried about any dangers in the cavern. With their strength, they could deal with any dangers. Get out! A blue saber radiance burst forth and filled the entire cave. Lan Yu had already fused the divine stone into the blue moon saber, and had unleashed an even stronger attack. Fusing with God's stones seemed difficult, but it was actually not that difficult. As long as the supreme weapon or saint artifact could withstand it, the process could be sped up. As the daughter of the chief of the Unfalling Eagle tribe, Lan Yu's blue moon blade was a top-notch level 5 supreme weapon. Not to mention fusing with 5 god stones, it would not be a problem for it to fuse with 6, 7, or even 8 god stones. In contrast to Lan Yu, Yi Chen used god stones to repair the heaven sword. He needed to be careful not to put too much pressure on the damage source, so the speed was much slower. Clang! When the blue moon blade had only fused with 4 divine stones, Lan Yu had been able to unleash the attack of a quasi-legend sovereign. Now that the blue moon blade's power had risen, Lan Yu's attack had naturally risen along with it. It had already surpassed the range of an ordinary quasi-legend sovereign, and was advancing towards a higher level. In an instant, Huo Wujin and Black Fiend were forced to retreat. 5-star Earth Saint artifact. Black Fiend blurted out. They already knew that Yi Chen and Lan Yu had saint artifacts. Without them, the two of them wouldn't be a match for them. Saint artifacts were divided into Earth Saint artifacts and Sky Saint artifacts. There were also smaller grades within the grades. An Earth Saint artifact that had one divine stone fused with it was a 1-star Earth Saint artifact, and 2 divine stones fused with it was a 2-star Earth Saint artifact, and so on. A 5-star Earth Saint artifact was an Earth Saint artifact that had 5 divine stones fused with it. It was extraordinarily precious. Its power has increased by quite a bit. Lanya giggled. She didn't seem nervous at all when she encountered 2 quasi-legend sovereigns. Unrivaled fire dragon. Wujin coldly snorted. He clasped his hands together and pushed them forward with his palms facing outwards. In an instant, an invincible fire dragon flew out from his palms and pounced towards Lanyu. One could vaguely see a huge heart within the body of the fire dragon. The heart was violently beating, causing the fire dragon to become even more powerful and full of explosive power. The unrivaled fire dragon wasn't a supreme martial art, but a supreme secret art that contained the power of the heart. Heisha had previously been injured, so when he saw Wujin executing the unrivaled fire dragon, he casually threw out 2 yin-yang millstones. A huge explosion erupted. Lanyu let out a muffled groan as she took over 10 steps back. With her current strength, she could fight against either Wujin or Heisha, but it was a bit too much for her to fight 1 against 2. After all, her strength wasn't in her own body, but in the blue moon saber. Her foundation was much weaker than the 2 of them. Lanyu was pushed back again and again. In this cave, the advantage she had gained from comprehending the Ro character was completely useless. Very quickly, she was pushed to the front of Yichen. If she took another step back, Yichen would be exposed. Unrivaled fire dragon. Yin and Yang worlds. An invincible fire dragon and a palm energy that could separate Yin and Yang struck Lanyu's body. PFFF. Lanyu spurted out a mouthful of blood as she was sent flying. Just when she was about to fly over Yi Chen's head, a strong arm caught her and skillfully placed her on the ground. "Leave the rest to me," Yi Chen said confidently. "You succeeded?" Lanyu's eyes narrowed when she saw the heavenly sword in Yi Chen's hand. This wasn't a 5-star Earth Saint artifact, but a 7-star Earth Saint artifact. Between Earth Saint artifacts, although the difference of 1 star wasn't huge, it shouldn't be forgotten that apart from power, Earth Saint artifacts also had their own special characteristics. For example, Lanyu's Blue Moon Saber possessed the ability to pierce through armor. If the ability to pierce through armor reached an unimaginable level, it could directly disregard the defense of others. On the other hand, Yi Chen's power of light was an upright power that enemies wouldn't be able to completely defend against. Although the power of light wasn't as absolute as the ability to pierce through armor, it was more comprehensive. With doubts in her mind, Lanyu retreated behind Yi Chen. With the heavenly sword in hand, Yi Chen slashed out with the Overlord sword form. Boom! The domineering sword aura completely filled up the cave. The sword aura was majestic and indestructible. It was like a straight torrent that tore through everything. Not good. Wujin and Heisha resisted with all their might. Rumble! The cave trembled as Wujin and Heisha flew out of the cave. Is this the true power of the heavenly sword? A piece of divine stone had completely restored the origin of the heavenly sword. Right now the heavenly sword was at its peak. Not only had its power increased by a lot, but the power of light was also clearer and more vigorous, making the sword aura irresistible. Let's go. Let's go out. Right now, Yi Chen didn't need to be afraid of quasi-legendary supremes. In terms of defense, he could block the attacks of quasi-legendary supremes. In terms of offense, he was probably at the top among quasi-legendary supremes. After flying out of the cave, the two saw Wujin and Heisha with gloomy expressions. 7-star Earth Saint artifact, who are you guys? Wujin asked. He didn't think that ordinary people could possess a 7-star Earth Saint artifact. It doesn't matter who we are. Take this. With a wave of the heavenly sword, Yi Chen executed the death cut, which had the widest range of attack. Although the death cut wasn't at the completion stage, it already had the might of a completion stage sword move, under the amplification of the heavenly sword. As for the completion stage sword moves, the Overlord sword form and illusory sword form, They were of a higher level. Huo Wujin and He Sha were having a hard time resisting. The Saint artifact in Yi Chen's hand was too powerful. If they had a 7-star Earth Saint artifact, they could even challenge legendary supremes. Huo Wujin, He Sha, let me help you guys. Right at this moment, Huo Wubian arrived. The power of the fire god's halberd in his hand skyrocketed as he swept it at Yi Chen. Chapter 1349. The fire divine halberd had fused with the divine stone, officially becoming a saint artifact. Although it was only a 1-star Earth Saint artifact, there was a huge gap between a supreme artifact and a saint artifact. On the contrary, the gap between an Earth Saint artifact was much smaller. With a 1-star Earth Saint artifact, Huo Wubian's strength had firmly suppressed Huo Wujin and He Sha. He could be considered an expert among quasi-legend rank sovereigns. Deep green flames curled up and turned into a ferocious qilin that pounced at Yi Chen. Come at me. Yi Chen roared and executed the tyrant sword stance. Boom. The fire qilin and the sword qi perished together, and a powerful shockwave swept out in all directions. Powerful. Worthy of being a quasi-legend rank sovereign. Yi Chen was clear that he was relying on the sky sword stance to have the strength of a quasi-legend rank sovereign, while Huo Wubian and the rest were quasi-legend rank sovereigns themselves. If they had the strength, they would naturally be powerful and couldn't be easily dealt with. But I have the illusory sword stance. If one's heart force isn't strong enough, they won't be my opponent. Yi Chen was very confident in his illusory sword stance. Not every quasi-legend rank sovereign's defense was as strong as his. Therefore, as long as they were affected by the illusion for a moment, he would be able to find a loophole and attack them. Raging Flame River. Seeing that his ultimate move had been neutralized, Huo Wubian executed an even stronger move. As soon as this move was executed, the surging flames turned into a river and gushed towards Yi Chen. It's time to show my true strength. Yi Chen did not try to avoid it, instead rushing toward the river of fire. Courting death. Huo Wubian sneered. But in the next moment his expression froze. Yi Chen actually ignored the flame river and slashed his way through it. When the surging flames landed on Yi Chen, they were instantly extinguished. Illusory sword stance. After slashing apart the last layer of the flame river, Yi Chen appeared before Huo Wubian and slashed out with his sword. Not good. Huo Wubian had already experienced the power of the illusory sword stance, but he still couldn't defend against it. If one wanted to defend against the illusory sword stance, their heart force must be strong enough, or they had cultivated a supreme heart force secret art. Puchi. Yi Chen's celestial sword pierced through Huo Wubian's shoulder. Originally, Yi Chen had wanted to stab Huo Wubian's chest, but he had woken up ahead of time. The fire god halberd and celestial sword clashed, causing celestial sword's attack trajectory to deviate slightly. After the sword pierced through Huo Wubian's shoulder, Yi Chen lightly shook the heavenly sword. Like powder, half of Huo Wubian's body completely disintegrated. This is a 7-star sacred artifact. Huo Wubian was startled. He swept away Yi Chen with his halberd to prevent himself from suffering another heavy injury. The three of you are no match for me now. Yi Chen retreated several hundred meters and didn't continue attacking. It was too difficult to kill 3 quasi-legendary supremes. Forcing them into a desperate situation was tantamount to forcing them to risk their lives. The 3 of them were silent. What Yi Chen said was the truth, and they couldn't refute it. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to display their own strength. Hence, they were feeling very conflicted. Let's go. Seeing that the 3 of them weren't speaking, Yi Chen knew that if they stayed here, they would only fly into a rage out of humiliation. His figure flashed, and he flew away with Lan Yu. We're letting them go just like that. Black Fiend was a little unwilling. What else can we do? He has a 7-star sacred artifact. Ordinary quasi-legendary supremes would find it hard to touch him. Only legendary supremes can suppress him. But you and I both know that legendary supremes won't easily make a move unless they've won their respect. 7th-rank tribes all had legendary supremes. Hence, legendary supremes wouldn't make a move for fear of inadvertently provoking other 7th-rank tribes and causing a war. It was fine for the people below to fight, But the people above had to be careful. There might be other divine stones on the 12th floor. Let's continue searching. Huo Wubian's mood wasn't too bad. He was already satisfied with obtaining a divine stone. Previously, he had chased after Yi Chen because he was afraid that Yi Chen would leak the secret, making it impossible for him to obtain the divine stone on the 12th floor. After recovering the heavenly sword origin, Yi Chen didn't continue to stay in the divine fire cave. Quasi-legendary supremes weren't scary, but legendary supremes were. If he provoked the legendary supremes of the divine fire tribe, he would probably die here. The days returned to normal. Yi Chen and Lan Yu occasionally went out for a stroll and went hunting. The rest of the time, they basically stayed in the Eternal Tribe to practice sword and saber arts. Of course, Yi Chen also began to try to forge a supreme sword. In the center of the wilderness god continent, there was a lonely mountain. The top of the mountain had been flattened, and a golden hall sat on it. In the hall, there were 5 golden chairs, each with a person sitting on it. If a legendary supremes were here, they would definitely recognize that the 5 people in the hall were the chiefs of the 5 rank 8 tribes. They were the Redbud Flower Tribe's Kong Siwei, the Unfalling Eagle Tribe's Ying Liexiong, the Yunzhong Tribe's Yin Piaomiao, the Battle Pagoda Tribe's Tai Tan, and the Xinghai Tribe's Chen Tianding. Same rules. The Wilderness God Tower will decide how long the martial character can be held, the Xinghai Tribe's Chen Tianding said. Then let's go with the old rules. Tai Tan agreed, but then he said, but the details have to be changed. The tribe that gets first place in the Wilderness God Tower will get 2 portions of time, not 1. The Redbud Flower Tribe's Kong Siwei frowned. Doesn't that mean that only the top 9 can fight for the tribe's time? That's right. Tai Tan nodded. Tai Tan, it seems that you are very confident in the youths of your tribe? Ying Liexiong sized up Tai Tan with a meaningful look. The Yunzhong tribe's Yin Piaomiao raised her right hand. I agree with Tai Tan. Who's afraid of who? Then let's go with this rule. Ying Liexiong said. Eternal tribe. To reach the large success stage of the 5 elements sword art is indeed not something that can be done in a day. Yi Chen sighed. The 5 elements sword art was his foundation. Once he reached the large success stage of the 5 elements sword art, he would be able to create sword moves based on the 5 elements sword art. At that time, be it offense or defense, there would be no loopholes. Furthermore, he would be able to condense the essence of the 5 elements sword art and continue to advance towards a higher level, such as creating a supreme sword art. It must be known that even legendary supremes could not create supreme martial arts. Only high-level legendary supremes could create supreme martial arts. When Heavenly Lord Rotten Devil was at his peak, he should be a high-level legendary supremes. There was no progress in the 5 elements sword art. However, during this period of time, Yi Chen did not gain nothing. He had already forged a semi-finished supreme sword. In the process of forging the supreme sword art, Yi Chen was surprised to find that his destruction sword intent and immortal sword intent were slowly improving. Among them, the light sword intent was improving the fastest and had already entered the ranks of the 8th rank. Perhaps when he successfully forged a supreme sword art, he would be able to upgrade the 2 supreme sword intents to the 9th rank and the light sword intent to the peak of the 8th rank. Of course, this was only a guess. A 9th rank supreme sword intent was not that easy to upgrade. Yi Chen, are you interested in going to the Unfalling Eagle tribe with me? Lan Yu came over and asked. Chapter 1350. Unfalling Eagle Tribe? Yi Chen looked at Lan Yu. Lan Yu said, actually, I am the daughter of the Unfalling Eagle tribe's leader. My full name is Ying Lan Yu. Why did you invite me to the Unfalling Eagle tribe? Yi Chen had long guessed that Lan Yu's identity was not simple. She should have come from a large tribe, so he was not surprised at all when she said that she was the daughter of the Unfalling Eagle tribe's leader. Lan Yu explained, your tyrant word and illusion word, as well as my break word, all came from a calligraphy piece left behind by a demigod, and the name of this calligraphy piece is the martial word. The entire calligraphy piece is called the martial word, and the martial word gathers the essence of the entire calligraphy piece. As long as you can completely comprehend the essence of the martial word, you can easily create a supreme martial art. You can even comprehend the will of a demigod through the martial word, and raise your own will to the 9th step. However, the martial word does not belong to anyone, nor does it belong to any great power. It is kept in the hands of the 5 great tribes of the 8th rank. Every 100 years, the 5 great tribes will send young experts to challenge the desolate god tower. According to the results of the challenge, each tribe will hold the martial word for the next 100 years. As an outsider, you originally did not have the opportunity to participate, but as long as you work hard for my unfalling eagle tribe and obtain a good result in the desolate god tower, I might be able to persuade Father to allocate some time for you to comprehend the martial word. Martial word? Yi Chen's eyes flashed. To him, the opportunity to comprehend the martial word was indeed an unimaginable opportunity. This was much more important than obtaining a saint tool. His sword intent and 5 elements sword arts were both at a critical point. Once he was inspired by the martial word, the possibility of a breakthrough was very high. Next, Lan Yu explained the details to Yi Chen. The 5 great tribes would each send 10 young experts under 2,000 years old. Only by entering the top 10 would they be able to obtain a share of the time for the tribe. The desolate god tower had a total of 1,000 floors. The previous time, the first place of the desolate god tower had reached the 655th floor. At that time, Lan Yu's strength was not too high, and she had only reached the 580th floor, which was outside of the top 10. The 5 tribes attach great importance to the duration of holding the word martial. The longer one holds the word martial, the faster the strength of the warriors in the tribe will increase. If there is no warrior in the tribe who can break into the top 10, then they will not have the opportunity to hold the word martial for the next 100 years. This will cause them to become weaker and weaker. They will be left behind by others, and it will be difficult to catch up in the future. Lan Yu said as she waved her fist. Last time, she was not able to enter the top 10. This time she had to give it a try. What young experts are there in the 5 tribes? How strong are they? Yi Chen felt that it was necessary to understand the strength of the young masters of the 5 tribes. Lan Yu said, 100 years ago, the top 3 young experts of the 5 great tribes were all quasi-legend supremes. 100 years have passed, and with the addition of comprehending the word martial, I reckon that each of them has become even more powerful. This year, there might be more than 10 quasi-legend supremes. The top 3 are Battle Bear of the Battle Pagoda tribe, Evil Star of the Xinghai tribe, and Kong Xueli of the Bauhinia tribe. Among them, Evil Star is the same as you from the outside world. It is said that he is an evil spirit from the outside world. Evil spirit race Evil Star, could it be Supreme Evil Star? Yi Chen had heard of Supreme Evil Star before. He was a rare genius of the evil spirit race. Like him, he had become a supreme in 1,000 years. However, he had disappeared 700 years ago. It turned out that he had gone to the desolate god continent. After hearing so much, you should be willing to follow me to the unfalling eagle tribe, right? Lan Yu asked. Yi Chen nodded. Of course I am. On the same day, the 2 of them set off for the unfalling eagle tribe. The unfalling eagle tribe was located on the largest grassland in the desolate god continent. As far as the eye could see, the world was a vast expanse of green that extended to the end of the horizon. The unfalling eagle tribe was very large, like a city. Looking down from the sky, the entire tribe was shaped like an eagle spreading its wings and soaring into the sky. It was very domineering. The princess is back. Lan Yu's return immediately caused a commotion in the unfalling eagle tribe. Some young experts rushed over. It was too difficult to find a suitable partner in the desolate god continent. Lan Yu was the best in terms of identity, temperament, and strength. Not to mention the young experts of the unfalling eagle tribe. Even the young experts of the other large tribes were interested in Lan Yu. Lan Yu, where have you been for so long? You're only a high-level super venerable. What qualifications do you have to speak to Princess Lan Yu? Lan Yu, I've already reached the peak super venerable realm in the past few years. Didn't you say that I could speak to you when I reached the peak super venerable realm? The weakest of these young experts was a low-level supreme, and the strongest was a peak supreme. If they were placed in the outside world, they would definitely be top experts. The various races would have a headache. It seems that you are quite popular. Yi Chen followed beside Lan Yu and said with a smile. Lan Yu said helplessly, "They are all a bunch of flies. So annoying." At first, everyone's attention was on Lan Yu. After not getting a response from Lan Yu, they noticed that Lan Yu had actually brought back a young man. Immediately, their gazes turned unfriendly. "Lan Yu, who is he?" A young man blocked their path. Yi Chen raised his head and saw that the other party was very handsome. His aura was vigorous and vast. Although it was hard to see his strength from his appearance, Yi Chen had a feeling that the other party should be a quasi-legend supreme. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to threaten him. "Ing Tianjie, is it your business who I bring back?" Lan Yu said bluntly. Ing Tianjie's expression didn't change, as if he was used to Lan Yu's attitude. However, his gaze towards Yi Chen was even colder. He transmitted, "I don't care what relationship you have with Lan Yu. From now on, you better stay far away from her. Otherwise, I have 100 ways to make you wish you were dead. Do you understand?" He had long known that Lan Yu wasn't interested in him. However, in his opinion, Lan Yu wasn't interested in anyone. Therefore, his chances were still high. Now that there was another Yi Chen, his heart was filled with intense anger. "You are come to me." At this moment, a thunderous voice sounded. Hearing this voice, everyone shut their mouths and became silent. "Yi Chen, come with me to see my father." Lan Yu was prepared to bring along Yi Chen. "You come alone. Let him stay." At the same time the thunderous voice sounded, Lan Yu involuntarily flew out, leaving Yi Chen alone in the Unfalling Eagle Tribe's plaza. Surrounding him was a group of young experts with unkind expressions. Yi Chen sized up the place where Lan Yu left with a strange expression. The corner of his mouth twitched. Lan Yu's father seemed to want to test him. It seemed that if he didn't work hard, he might be kicked out of the Unfalling Eagle Tribe. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.